Pity not the blind man, for he will see the light before you do. Hallowed or the Ori. Welcome to the party, fellow hoplophiles. Olight sent me their M2r Pro Warrior to review, which I guess is pretty cool of them, considering what I did to the PL Mini 2 and PL Pro Valkyrie. If you haven't seen that video, it's okay. You can watch it after this one and you'll still be able to follow the plot. The M2r Pro Warrior is a rechargeable flashlight that can be used as a handheld light or as a weapon-mounted light. As I've done in the past, I plan to unfairly punish this light and give my opinions on it. It's got a lot going for it, so before we get into the gear snuff film part of the video, let's run through some of those features. Like other lights offered by Olight, it is rechargeable and it uses the same nifty magnetic USB charger that many of their other products use. I said it before and I don't mind saying it again, the convenience of this feature alone counts for a lot of points in the light's favor. All of my other lights either run on disposable batteries or you have to take the battery out to charge it. The magnetic charging with a USB cable makes for a level of convenience and versatility that just really blows my mind. It means the average home user can have fresh batteries in their light at all times. It means a cop could keep his weapon light battery topped off while his rifle stays in the mount. But as fascinated as I am by these simple things, that's all old news and every other gun guy on the planet is over it. To get a feel for the M2r Pro Warrior, I carried it every day for several weeks. My normal EDC light is a Surefire E2E that I've had for about 15 years. It's pretty close to the ship of Theseus as I've replaced the lamp assembly, tail cap, O-rings, and the pocket clip many times. The only part that's original is the tube. But it's a compact, reasonably tough light, and I'm resistant to change. The Warrior is noticeably larger. It's about the size of a Surefire G2, give or take, and it's also quite a bit heavier. To be fair, most of that weight is battery. And that just means they crammed an awful lot of angry pixies in there, what for the burning of retinas, etc. And although that weight is definitely noticed way out near the muzzle of a rifle, it isn't like it's going to drag my pants down when carried in a pocket. The diameter of the light and the nearly flush design of the tail cap switch combine to put my thumb knuckle at kind of an odd angle, but I have shorter thumbs than most daikini. In any case, it's not unusable, just less comfortable than other lights with a tail cap switch. It has these cool pointy bits at the bright end that I assume are for pokey, hitty kind of things, but I don't live in communist China, so I carry a gun for defense. If I needed a less lethal option, I'd probably use OC, but I've never really been one to care much about the whole flashlight as a weapon concept. However, if you're into that, it looks like it would smart to get hit with this thing. The M2r Pro Warrior has two switches. On the side of the light, just behind the bezel, is a sort of admin switch, if you will. It's small, nearly flush, and has a clicky feel to it. This switch allows you to cycle through the various brightness levels by holding the switch while the light is on until you reach the level you want. When you turn the light off, it will return to the last setting you used. Because when you're looking for that thing that fell under your seat, you probably don't want to witness the full firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station just inches from your nose. It also has a tail cap switch that is used for the higher power settings. In the default mode, if you tap the tail switch quickly, it will stay on until you tap the switch again. That means that an accidental bump in your pocket is likely to turn the light on and leave it running until you feel it getting hot. I mentioned in the previous video that I'm not a big fan of this tap for constant mode of operation. It's really just a personal preference and training issue in a weapon light because regardless of how the switch works, you're gonna lock out the light when you stow your weapon in a vehicle or carry it on patrol. Or really use it in any other context where you want to be sure that the light stays off. And before you enter a structure, you would unlock the light. To lock or unlock the Warrior, you hold the side switch for 2 seconds. But unintentional activation is a lot more annoying and potentially a safety problem in an EDC light. It isn't practical to lock out an EDC light while you're carrying it. That'd be like carrying an unloaded gun. You could carry it in the pouch it comes with, I guess. I'm sure it'll look great next to your leather pouch for your jitterbug. The rest of us will use the reversible pocket clip that goes both ways. You can attach the clip to either end of the light and you can carry it pointing up or down at either end. This ended up being pretty important because I found that I kept accidentally activating it and I was able to reduce that quite a bit by fine-tuning the orientation of the light in my pocket. Even so, it would still get turned on and stay on until it got hot enough that I noticed. It even got hot enough once to melt a hole in the pocket of my favorite pants. So yeah, if this light took disposable batteries, that would probably be enough to make me write it off entirely. Between burning holes in my clothes and in my wallet from replacing batteries every other day, it just wouldn't be worth it. But it's rechargeable, and like I said, I was able to reduce the unintentional activation somewhat by changing how I carried it. Now, there is a second mode you can put the light into by pressing and holding the tail cap switch while clicking the side switch. In this mode, a light press on the tail switch turns the light on at face melting setting, and a hard press activates strobe. Releasing turns both off. If you are using the tape switch in this mode, the tape switch activates the strobe, and that's where they totally lost me. I think strobe is just plain dumb, and I can't imagine ever using it unless I'm attacked by an epileptic. Now, I know there are people out there who argue about disorienting the enemy. I imagine they probably like to run a short 308 with a break to disorient the bad guys while they adrenaline dump. If I ever have to use my firearm defensively, I'll likely be disoriented enough myself from sleep, liquor, or shame that I can ill afford to complicate things any. But hey, if you like to party and want to turn a shooting into a disco, you do you, fam. My preference for an EDC handheld light would be for the tail switch to operate in momentary only, ever. It should be push lightly for low, which would be about 50 to 100 lumens, and push harder for high. Any other brightness levels or features should be accessed by the side switch. I think some of these Chinese manufacturers get wrapped around the axle about having a Brazilian light modes and power levels, and that all just adds complexity. The important thing is that you have fast, intuitive control over the light. It should come on instantly and shut off instantly, and you should never have to think about what it is going to do. And I don't think I'm out of line in saying that most gun guys probably want the same. All these features and modes are nifty, but they're only nifty if they don't get in the way of using the light normally. But that's just like my opinion, man, and it's worth every cent you paid for it. Part of my testing regimen included carrying the light on a trip to a water park where I discovered that this light comes on when it is submerged. It blew my mind. I was sitting in the hot tub, I'll spare you the B-roll of me in a hot tub, when a friend told me my pocket was on. Now, I figured it was the same as it had done many times before, so I took it out of my pocket and tried to turn it off while it was still underwater. It wouldn't go out. I lifted it up out of the water and it shut off. I got to thinking about this on the way home, and it occurred to me there must be enough chlorine or impurities or salts in the water at the park to make it conductive, because pure water is not conductive. When I got home, I channeled my inner Mr. Wizard, and sure enough, fresh water did not activate the light while salt water does. Pretty neat. Not sure how useful that feature is, but I guess it could come in handy if you crash your car off a pier into the ocean and find yourself slowly sinking into the inky blackness. Now, a few of you are already way ahead of me and are realizing that if salt water can activate the light, then anything conductive can probably do it too. And you'd be right. A quick bump with a key or a pocket knife might turn the light on. And because the switch is magnetic, it attracts ferrous objects quite powerfully, so probably not best to keep anything conductive in the same pocket as this light. Most of my complaints evaporate when this light is used as a weapon light. In this role, it's kind of medium-sized. Larger than my Surefire Scout, but smaller than my M951, the M2r Pro Warrior is big enough and heavy enough to notice, but it isn't obnoxious. The mount provided by Olight is a really clever design that has this sort of locking screw. It ought to fit most any ring-type mount intended for a 1-inch diameter scope or flashlight. The tape switch has a magnetic connector like the charger, and it has a clicky feel to it, which I really like. I'm still not a fan of the tap for constant mode of operation, but it's the sort of thing you can train around. In every other way, it appears to be a reasonably tough and impressively bright light. As I mentioned before, the extra weight is associated with an extra large battery. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch, and if you want to melt faces like Indiana Jones, you're gonna have to choose between short runtime or a battery large enough to meet your needs. The manufacturer states the light will run for 4.5 minutes at the face melting setting before it drops down to the merely hella bright 750 lumen setting. I started the light in the face melting mode and timed how long it would take to run completely dead. That took about 3 hours. Olight lists the runtime for each mode on their site, along with an 80-something page PDF with all sorts of science-y stuff and more technical detail than you probably want about various bench test results. All in all, it's a bright light that runs for a good while. That's fine and all, but get to the torture prawn is probably what I imagine you're thinking right now, so let's see if we can break this thing. The first thing that came to mind is just use the light normally, but on a dinosaur killer. I shot several hard recoiling rounds through a 45-70 with the light mounted. I also used it on a 5.56 AR and 10mm brace pistol, but honestly, all that is fairly pedestrian. I mean, 45-70 or no, it is a weapon light and it ought to keep working on a weapon. It doesn't exactly prove it's as tough as nails, so I used it for a hammer and tried to drive a nail with it. It might not surprise you to find that it didn't do very well. It was very difficult to drive that little nail, so I can confidently report that this light absolutely sucks as a hammer. But to turn a phrase, it isn't what the light does to the nail, it's about what the nail does to the light. And the light was relatively unharmed, except for the, cosmetic damage that you'd expect. Now, I'm sure I could break this thing. If I put my mind to it, I think I can break just about anything. I was a grunt once. But within the normal scope of use, I don't think you're likely to break this light. Ultimately, I think this is a quality light at a fair price, despite my preference for other switching options. It is tough, bright, and convenient to use. Olight is still a relatively new company, so it'll be some time before they develop a reputation for service and for failure rate in carbine classes. But based on what I've seen so far, the build quality is at least on par with competitors, and in the end, you are the only person who can decide whether a tool fits your needs or not. I hope I've given you enough information to make that decision. If you enjoy watching content like this, please consider that a great deal more time goes into it than for shorter form reviews. I think it's important to be as detailed as is practical because that's what I like to see in gear reviews. A sort of Gunsumer reports, if you will. You don't owe us a damn thing. But if you believe in capitalism and want to vote with your hard-earned quatloos, consider buying a shirt at our Teespring store. Guaranteed to trigger a stepper or no money back. I have spoken.